coaches, welcome back to another Modern Soccer Coach podcast. Set pieces have become a very, very important part of the game in recent years, but implementing set piece training into your game model is still somewhat of a challenge for coaches. Where does it fit during the week? How do you build principles, sub-principles, all those concepts? How do they align with your game model? Ruben Santos is with us today to discuss just that. Ruben has extensive experience in tactical methodology and work as an assistant coach and a set piece coach in a number of Portuguese professional teams. Ruben has delivered an outstanding set piece webinar for us at Modern Soccer Coach. It's nearly 2 hours long of pure detail and concepts. It's available on the MSC Insider. All members get access to Ruben's webinar, plus all the set piece webinars we've done with Modern Soccer Coach. So if you're looking at preparing and upskilling for the upcoming season, check out the Insider. It works out at only $10 a month for the year. So a brilliant, brilliant investment. There's tons of content every single week coming on the Modern Soccer Coach Insider. Ruben's webinar is also available on the Modern Soccer Coach store as well, modernsoccercoach.com/shop. You can buy it individually, but the deal of the century is on the Insider. That's where all the content is, on-demand access and upcoming exclusive content. Ruben's work is outstanding. The webinar is phenomenal. This was a conversation after the webinar with a few questions from me. I hope you enjoy. Please like, subscribe. Thanks so much for your support. Here's Ruben. Enjoy.
When you're going into pre-season and you're looking at planning your game model, how would you advise coaches to start with the set piece work?
Yeah, first of all, I think the pre-season is very important for coaches or set piece coaches to pass on what they intend to do during the season. Of course, they need to know the players, need to understand the context, need to understand the culture, either of the club or the country. But I think it's essential that they create the base of what they want to do with the set pieces, because during the season, there's not much time to train everything you want. And usually players already have so much cognitive load with normal training, with what the coach wants to pass on to the team, what he wants to correct, what he wants to improve. And set pieces are additional cognitive load. Sometimes people aren't aware of that, because they see set pieces, oh, the players aren't moving. You go see the GPS and the distance or the impacts, they almost none, and they forget that working on set pieces has a high cognitive load, has also the energetic demands of working on set pieces are high, because players need to be focused, they need to be standing. Sometimes standing still they get more tired than moving around, because the anti-gravitic muscles are also working. So what I meant to say is, if you can pass on some information during the preseason, you can create a base, so you don't pass too much information during the normal season, because especially with so much games nowadays, players need, the most important thing for players is to recover, between commas, during the week, while us also acquiring something to improve what they want to improve or what they did wrong. So set pieces, you need to establish a good base in the preseason. So during the season, you don't add so much cognitive load to already an overloaded or overloaded players with information. So I think the preseason is very important. What I will do, also distribute the information. You can't arrive at the team and bam, I want this. And when I say distribute, it doesn't mean fragment. It doesn't mean, okay, now today we only do the corner kicks, kicking the corner kick itself. Then we do three guys heading the ball. Then no, I explained a lot in the presentation about that with the contextual exercises with high representativeness, high fidelity, because for me training is only training if it's the same as the game. And to be the same as the game, it needs to be not only the physical part, but the mental part, cognitive part, the competition, the emotional part. And that's the only way I see that you can train set pieces for real. Obviously, we have a continuum of repetition and representativeness. And high representative exercises usually don't allow much repetition. So if we are training a contextual exercise where it's 11 against 11, we will probably won't have as much corners if we are practicing corners individually with one or two players. So we'll have much more. It will be less representative, but more repetitions. If possible, for me, high representativeness. But sometimes during the week, you need to balance because sometimes you don't have time to train everything. And if you don't have time, you need to dose or use the correct dosage of what you want to train. And so I think the secret is that dosage during the preseason, because you can't give all the information at once. It's I think it's like for the game model is very important to create a base for the rest of the season, and so that during the season you don't overload the players with more information, more things, and the information stays on their unconscious part of the brain, which they access more or more fast than the conscious part. And since it's on the unconscious part, they don't have a higher cognitive load. I forgot to do this analogy, but it's something that we want set pieces to be like we are making small tattoos on our brain. But if it stays on the conscious part, every time we need to see what the tattoo looks like, we need to look at the tattoo, see, okay, it's like this, and we're expending energy. We want the tattoos or that small tattoos, the ink, to be absorbed by the brain. So when you're thinking about something, you don't even think about it, you just act on it, and you don't lose any energy thinking about it. And I think that's what we want to do for set pieces.
And then on that complexity piece, in terms of the number of routines or the number of movements, do you get to a stage where you can give too much information to players or ask too much sequences to be carried out?
Yeah, that and too much openness, let's say, because we want set pieces to be redundant in the way that we want, let's say, a corner. We want to take a corner in a manner that gets us closer to scoring a goal. And if we can, like Arsenal, if Arsenal does the same corner and always does a goal, do they need variability? They don't need variability in the macro aspect of the corner. They take in-swing corners with some blocks, some destabilization, and the target man who needs to lose his marker. That's like redundant. It's almost always the same. Where is their variability? Probably in the timing, in the blocks, in how Gabriel makes or tries to trick his man mark. Maybe the redundancy, the variability is on a smaller scale. So I think you should have not a high number of routines, but you can have different variations or nuances inside those routines. And I think when players learn or can do well those routines, they start to also be able to adapt to different situations. I think sometimes people say that in books or series or films, a character is only as smart as the person writing it. And I also think that teams are also as smart as the ones coaching them. So in this case, set pieces coach, if you coach your team well, let's say to attack, they will also be coached well to defend. And if they are well coached to attack, they also be more aware for the types of situations they can do or they can't do, or they can afford or they can adapt. So in one of those videos, I showed examples of Arsenal doing many times the same thing, almost exactly like clones of each other, and then having some variability, but depending on the scale, they variate something on that scale. Also, something that made me think is a team that is very predictable can also be easier to be very unpredictable. So there was a corner that Arsenal does always the same for Gabriel with the blocks and the movements, but then the ball didn't went to Gabriel. It went to the second post to Trossard. No one was expecting that because Arsenal always does the same thing. So I think it also opens up these possibilities. To finish, the adaptability versus having a pattern or doing what the set piece coach wants. We can have the example of Declan Rice free kick against Real Madrid. I thought, and I think everyone thought, Nicolas Jover was saying for him to take it around the wall. But in the end, Rice told us that no, he was telling him to cross. So sometimes players see better things than we can see, or in the moment they see things that we didn't plan for. So we have to have this margin for adaptability, and also for them to do what we planned. Because if it's too open, it's too variable, and maybe not anyone is on the same page. If it's too closed, we reach the game, something doesn't happen as we planned, and they don't have the capacity to adapt.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like staying on your presentation, you referenced Arsenal quite a few times and some brilliant clips showing some great detail. When you're looking at going in as a set piece coach, and I think this, I'm fascinated by this. Do you think you can, with how Nicolas Jover was kind of received by, the amount of credit he got this season, do you think a set piece coach is in danger of going into an environment and putting too much pressure on themselves to deliver really, really high or high output very fast?
Yeah, he raised the bar too much, I think. He raised the bar too much because Arsenal is a complete outlier. I saw a graph a few weeks ago, and Arsenal is like a complete outlier in terms of set pieces. So it's true. I hope I'm not insulting anyone, but I believe, I think it was Manchester United 2 or 3 seasons ago that hired a set piece coach. He was there for 1 season or 2, and they had the lowest conversion of set pieces in all leagues. And it was at the time that there wasn't many set piece coaches roles. So it's very hard because sometimes it might not be the set piece coach's fault, but the set piece coach also has to have the capacity to adapt to his team, adapt to his coach, adapt to the environment, adapt to everything. I believe what Nicolas Jover did was he adapted perfectly to the tendencies of the way that teams defend nowadays. So in one of those examples, or in many examples, for example, in Arsenal's free kick, they always try to put the ball between the goalkeeper and the defensive line, because that's usually the pattern how teams defend nowadays, or the good teams. In one example, Liverpool tried to surprise him and the line tried to go up when he was kicking the free kick to put him offside. It didn't work, but I think it was because Saka was aware of that. I think If it was because they were aware collectively, even more brilliant. But I think Saka identified that and reached the ball and wasn't offside. But for me, if I wanted to counter these new ways of attacking set pieces, in this case, Arsenal puts the players offside, then they win the front of the defenders, they block. I need to have different ways of counteracting those actions. What could they be? Liverpool tried that. In my opinion, I think it's a good way of trying to counteract that, but I won't do it on the first free kick. On the first free kick, everyone is more aware. If it was on the second or third, I don't believe the Arsenal players will be aware, because no one does the first like this, the second like this, and then the third they all go up. But you could coach your team like that, or on the second, you go up, on the third you do the opposite, you go down, so they don't win your front, because typically in free kicks teams don't defend as much close to the goal as possible, because if there's a header there, it's close to the goal. But since Arsenal does this way, maybe it's better to be closer to the goal and they don't win your front than to be further from the goal and they win your front and then end up having better chances than the other way around. So I think people need to try to counteract what is the new tendencies, especially for Arsenal. But it's true that the bar is very, very high. And if it was me that will go as a set piece coach to a club, it will be a lot of pressure, because you will need to have results, and everything in football is about results. You could have beautiful set pieces, and you don't score one goal. Okay, they are beautiful, but they are beautiful when they go in.
Yes, everything in football is about results, and everything in football is about the quality of your players for the most part. So yeah. How about this one? Let's say, like, where does individual development sit with set piece coaching, where, you know, in today's world, everyone is getting opposition analysis data on, you know, aerial percentages, and let's just say I'm a player in a professional league and my aerial percentage is quite low. And it's not because I'm really, really small. It's just that I'm not really good in the air. Would there be any part of you as a set piece coach looking at individuals to say, we need to get them better, we need to get them in duels more effective, or does that landscape happen?
I think I'm in my point of view, I always try to work things contextually. I think it works best. Individual work, okay, it can also improve, but if you remove some elements, the players remove their reference points. I can be crossing me, I can take corners, me and you can score every goal, and I can take perfect corners for you. And then in a game situation, there are other variables, and my corners don't go the same. You don't score any goal because there's opposition there. So I think you need to have a balance. But I think the best way is to work contextually. Of course, you can analyze and evaluate a player and try to see what they are lacking and what they can develop, and how can they improve it. Sometimes it's small details. I remember, I don't know when it was, but I think Carvajal scored a goal from a corner kick. I'm not sure if it was in the Champions League final or something. It was something unexpected, because no one was marking Carvajal, and Carvajal went there and scored the goal. So in terms of player development, of course, if I only take 5 corners a week, I will probably won't improve as much if I take 30. But we need to put this together with am I doing 30 or 50 corners a week, and I'm balancing this with my training, and this is having negative returns, because there's a point that instead of improving, I might have negative returns. So again, dosage. Essentially, I think it's the dosage. But I think we can improve players, especially in contextually rich exercises, because there, I think it's when not only learning is more rich, but also it stays with you longer. Because if I have a situation that marks me in an exercise, it will stay with me. I will get like not only a mental image, but also like a memory, and that will stay on my unconscious part of the brain, and that's what improves my, for example, perception. How will I attack the balls? How will I duel? If I'm in an exercise and I lost the exercise because I was defending and the forward pushed me, rotated and scored, that will have an emotional impact, and that will stay with me, and I will remember those things. And then when I remember those things, I will improve on those things. If they are decontextualized, the brain won't fire. The brain won't fire. The brain will like, okay, I missed. Okay, no problem. What are the stakes? There are no stakes. So I think it has to be mostly in a contextual environment, full of representativeness. It might also help have some individual work, because if I don't know how to take a corner kick, and if I never take a corner kick, I won't learn how to take a corner kick. And if I take some repetitions, I will improve. If I take much repetitions, of course, I will improve. But again, we need to take care of the dosage. One thing that you also mentioned, and I think it's interesting about the analysis part, is that nowadays everyone has access to analysis platforms, analysis tools. And sometimes, let's say, you have a player who is your best player in offensive aerial duels. So obviously, the defensive team will try to either block or mark or disrupt that player if you have a corner. But you also know that. And since you also know that, you can create strategies to try to nullify what you are expecting from the opposition. So I think nowadays you can use what your opponent thinks he knows about you against them. And I think I'm still not seeing many teams doing that, you know. I tried to implement some of those things this year in our club, because I tried to use some things that I knew that my opponents knew about us against them. Of course, typically many teams do like that. Okay, in a game, right hand is in swing corner, other game, left hand is swing corner, and is also a kind of destabilization. But I think we can go even further with that manipulation, with that using what your opponent knows about you against them.
Hello coaches, we'll take a quick break here. If you're enjoying this interview, if you are looking for more solutions, more ideas for your set piece work during the season, please head on over to Modern Soccer Coach Insider. I will put the link below where you can sign up and get on-demand access to Ruben's presentation, his webinar. It's nearly 2 hours long, plus you get every single other set piece webinar we've done in Modern Soccer Coach. So there's 7 in total. You get all those webinars plus every other webinar we've done in Modern Soccer Coach throughout the years, and there is a number of them, plus you get all the content, the upcoming content that we are going to do, plus community chats and discussions as well with the members. Modern Soccer Coach Insider, the link is below. I'll put it in the comments. I'll put it in the description. Please head on over there. It works out at $10 a month, and it's definitely worth the investment. Thanks so much for all the support. Modern Soccer Coach Insider, link in the description. Back to Ruben.
Coaching styles for a set piece coach. Do you think that because of the nature of set pieces, especially defensive set pieces, that, because there is a lot of clarity in roles and where you need people to be, the coaching style for a defensive set piece might vary from an attacking set piece where you maybe want a little bit more creativity or you want the players to problem solve. I don't really see that area kind of touched upon as, for example, if I walked into a set piece job with Arsenal tomorrow and nobody knew who I was, and I walked around saying, you've got to be there, you've got to be there, that's obviously not going to be well received by a lot of players. So would you recommend coaches to vary their coaching style at different stages of set pieces or even different stages of their journey?
I think typically, like the game model, defensively has less room for interpretation, because defensively, if one player is not in sync with the others, it can have like a domino effect, and everything goes out of the water. While offensively, there's more openness, first because you can't know for sure what's going to happen and how the opponents are going to act or react. And even if you miss, okay, you don't score, but it's not as bad as conceding a goal. While defensively, usually I think some coaches say it's about details and everyone being on the same page, everyone being in sync. While offensively, coaches usually try to have some sort of pattern without pattern. So you have a pattern, but you also want to have some variability because you want them to have different solutions, because they might face different problems. So I think defensively, you probably need to have, on a macro scale, very defined roles, positioning, functions. Of course, you can have a lower degree of freedom, because let's say you can, I think the best way to work on that is by principles. We defend, let's say, as a 5-man zone with 2-man marks, let's say. But the opponents put 5 players on the first post together. So how do we adapt? We're still gonna man mark. We're gonna go all to that zone. Are we gonna adapt? So you create principles. If they do this, it's like an algorithm. If they do this, you do that. If they don't do this, then that. If not this, then that. And if we are coach, while we coach set pieces, we want them to follow this algorithm, but also choose by themselves, because we don't know everything. Let's say sometimes I put on extremes. Okay, everyone from the opposite team stays outside the box, and you want 5-man marks. Okay, so you put your 5-man markings outside of the box. Let's say before Arsenal did this, I sometimes said this. So let's say if we put all the players behind the second post and we want all man marks, we're gonna put everyone there and leave all the goal unprotected. I used to do this kind of reflection. So they need also to have some kind of freedom to adapt. So it's some rigid approach, but also some freedom inside that rigid approach. But offensively, I think there's more room to be open. At least I think so.
As a set piece coach, would you be in favor of a player whose delivery is exceptional, or who's aerially going to give you a goal, more higher percentage of the chance, even though they're impact in the game might be less than another player. Would you ever be, hey, listen, that because of the value of what they bring to set pieces, I think that player should start or play ahead of another one?
That is a really hard question, and I think this also happens when you're, for example, your starting lineup. Especially, I give an example: defensive midfielders. You sometimes have very good defensive midfielders with the ball and building up, but they are like 170 meters tall, and you have others who are like 190, and they are not as comfortable with the ball, but they are very good at the aerial duels. And you start to think, okay, I put this guy, but in our defensive set pieces, how am I going to manage? So it's you need to balance these things. I think the question here is how much impact does that player have in your game model? Because set pieces are a portion of the whole game. Because if you ask Luis Enrique, then he won't play with Vitinha, João Neves, and etc. But the game model is so overwhelmingly good and compensates that part that it chooses that way. Barcelona against Inter, a good example, conceded a lot of goals from set pieces. Of course, having those kind of players, they are probably weaker in aerial duels and defensive set pieces. But the reverse side of the coin of that is that they are so good offensively and with the ball that they counteract that unbalance, let's say. So for me personally, I can't say for sure unless, let's say, you put a guy that every corner you have, he scores a goal, you need to play around that. I think depends a lot on if the success he brings versus the negative part of having him on the team, if we can say that. It's like a set piece taker. Okay, you have a guy. If you have a direct free kick, he will score, but playing with the other teammates, he doesn't have as good relations or connections with the others. So what do you do? I can't answer you for sure, but I think it's you need to balance those things and think what will get you closer to winning. I think that's the main question here.
Brilliant. All right, last one. This has been brilliant. Last one is kickoffs. You mentioned PSG there, and they just get up and smash it out of play today. Botafogo did a little one last night that I watched it back and like, I really like that. The Seattle goalkeeper read it. But both of them, neither seems to matter in the world of football, whether it's a great kickoff or a bad or a just smash it out of play. Do you think kickoffs will ever matter? Do you think we're ever going to have conversations about kickoff?
When you say kickoff, is the set, let's say, set piece action of starting the game.
Starting the game, yes, yeah.
I didn't see those games, but I saw PSG doing that. Let's say strange kickoff against who was it that they put the ball?
Inter Milan, like in the final.
Inter Milan, right? Yeah. Football. When we see football in the lens of complexity, one of the characteristics of complex adaptive system is the sensitivity to initial conditions. And if you think about this, when they put the ball outside, but it was like American football to win yards, to win yards, but it was meant to, okay, we're going to put the ball there and we're going to press high. And we're going to press high from the first second of the game. And this mental attitude, I think it's like the initial conditions of this game. So it puts not only the PSG players, but the Inter players in a mental state that they know what they want for the game. they confused the Inter Milan players because probably they were confused. They are immediately under pressure. So I think that was brilliant, out of the box. I love things like this, out of the box, because people say that football is invented, but we are always getting new things, improving things. And I love seeing this, like Arsenal set pieces. I think we need to have new ideas, be creative, think outside the box. Like I said, now Arsenal thinks outside the box attacking. The teams that defend against them need to think outside the box how to defend them. Else, because how do you think Arsenal trains their offensive set pieces? The ones who are defending in their training are usually as the other team is defending. Normally, if the other team start defending in a different way, they aren't training exactly how the opposition will defend. So I think that is the future of set pieces, to try to disrupt your opponents offensively, but also defensively, which we don't see as much. I had some difficulty getting some clips of defensive destabilization, because it's not so common. But when it happens, you think, okay, this was very good. This was brilliant. This makes sense. This this kickoff from Inter, brilliant, out of the box, and as an underlining tone and intention for the game. If we see it decontextualized, we see this. They are Vitinha. I'm not sure if it was Vitinha this time, but the other time was Vitinha. What are you doing? Why you put the ball outside? But if you think deeply on it, it was very, very, very smart.
Brilliant. All right, sneaky last one here. It's already becoming a quite a crowded landscape in terms of the industry, in terms of set piece coaching, even though it's not been introduced by every team. There's a lot of coaches, young coaches today, want to become set piece analysts, which is healthy. But there's limited opportunities, and again, there's a little bit of a crowded landscape to it. What advice would you have for a young coach that wants to be specialize in set pieces?
Yeah, football is a problem because although from time to time we get new positions, new roles, like set piece coach didn't exist a few years ago. The problem is we aren't getting more clubs, but every year we are getting more coaches. So there's limited space for everyone, and the tendency is to have fewer and fewer spaces for coaches to work on this industry. So it's when I think about it, it's kind of depressing, because it's a fact, and the tendency is to get worse. Also, to anyone starting, I use it my own example. I try to show to other people my work, because I think that's the only way that people that don't know you know what you know. Else they don't know if you know anything, if you don't know. And I think using presentations like I did, using small clips, small analysis, but trying to think outside the box, I think it's the best thing that can make you get noticed. At least it was what I tried to do with this presentation, was exactly this. I tried to search for some kind of model or conceptual framework to divide in set pieces and subphases, because I felt the need for it when I was coaching set pieces, because sometimes players, I wanted to explain to players, okay, you start here, but after I want you to go here, and after I want you to block here before the ball comes, and when the ball comes, I want you to go there. And it was hard for me to explain to the players, and having like a kind of model, I think it's easier. not only for you to analyze, conceptualize, but also to explain. And I didn't see this anywhere, at least public, that existed. So I tried to think about it, tried to create it, and tried to frame it inside complexity, which this didn't exist. Set pieces usually are not framed inside complexity because they seem contradictory. And so this seemed something out of the box. And it made me go deep in this rabbit hole, but it made me understand that it can be possible. You can use these subphases not only for set piece subphase. It was something that got on my mind when I was thinking about the presentation for today, is that I talked about fractals, and I think set piece subphases are fractals of set pieces. But then it came to my mind that those subphases are not only fractals of the set pieces. I think these subphases can be fractals of everything in football. I'll give you an example. Let's say, what is the setup phase for a team that's playing normally? Setup phase, it's the team position. That's the setup phase, the positioning of the players. What is the destabilization when you're playing? Whatever you want doing, movement, a passing, let's say it's a passing. My passing is trying to destabilize the defensive organization of the opponents. The execution, the movement I'm doing, the pass. The follow-up, what happens after I do the pass. If the pass is successful, if I move after, if I give support after the pass. So I think this terminology that I apply to subphases, it wasn't my objective, but I think it can be applied to probably or almost anything in football. Even those same subphases, which is incredible. The setup phase also has its own setup phase, its own destabilization. Let's say I start on the first post, it's my setup phase of the setup phase. My destabilization is moving to the second post to create space. My execution was the act of moving, and my follow-up is what I do after I move there. And so this subphase, it was like a eureka moment. You can apply to everything in a micro level and also on a macro level. And I'm saying all of this, why? Because I try to think outside the box, to try to differentiate myself from others, because nowadays everyone can go to software analysis tools and make links and rings and movements and this and that, and everyone knows that. And sometimes that is not analysis, it's an observation. It's only observation, it's not analysis. Analysis is something deeper. But analysis, it's hard for you to show in social media because it's so deep that you can't show it with as much detail as you want. So I think you need to think outside the box. Let's say a few years ago, you will show that your team is doing free kicks and corner kicks like Arsenal. Let's say before they do that. And you show them in your socials, you put the reasoning behind that. Maybe someone will notice it. Maybe someone will say, okay, this guy seems to have good ideas. Also, connecting to other people, networking. Football is all about connections. Football is all about a job opening. A job opens and someone remembers you or someone refers you to that person. So I think it's very hard for someone who's getting or starting into football. You need to climb a lot of ladders, work a lot, and it's not an easy task. But if you like what you do, it's worth the effort. But it's not easy. It's very, very, very hard. But that's my advice will be try to differentiate yourself from the others and think outside the box, because football is all about innovation and improving the status quo.
Love it. Ruben, thank you so much. Brilliant presentation. Excited for coaches to see it, and thanks so much for coming on. Amazing.
You see that I love talking. I will be here all day. You can call me whenever you want. We can talk. I love talking, and I don't get tired. I hope you generally. I hope you liked it. I try to give my best. I hope your audience likes it, and feel free to contact me. Feel free to talk to me about anything. I remember something that you talked about, that you showed some weeks ago about Saka's technique, kicking the corner kicks. Yeah, and that is it. Maybe he needs repetition to get that technique, but it's not because you put someone doing 100 repetitions that he will kick it like Saka or Rice ever. So there's some questions I can't answer, but it's good to think about them, you know. And I always watch your videos, always watch your podcasts. Loved your Rui Faria interview. Everyone loved it. We shared with everyone. So congratulations on that also.